Well, hello, family, friend, neighbor. Welcome to the Evergreen Local Tri-Cities Edition. I'm your host, Jay, and this is your weekly pulse on all things Benton, Franklin counties, and surrounding areas here in the Tri-Cities. From schools cuts and public health updates to dust level updates to housing trends to legal news and local wins. This episode's going to have a little bit of everything for you. So grab your coffee and let's jump right into it today. So, public health cuts hit Tri-Cities hard. So, the Benton Franklin Health District is facing significant cuts due to suspended federal grants. About 500,000 is expected in expected COVID-related funds initially allocated to prevent communicable diseases. So what does this all mean? Well, these cuts impact disease investigation, COVID testing, childcare outreach, and services for the unhoused. A court issued a restraining order to restore funding, but local application is uncertain. So we don't know how long the restorative fees are going to last for at all with this. The funding was part of a broader 11 billion appropriation by Congress aimed at strengthening public health responses nationwide. The President Trump administration recently suspended these funds, prompting multiple states, including Washington, to file a lawsuit. A U.S. district court has since issued a temporary restraining order attempting to restore funding. It's unclear yet if this temporary court order will directly restore the lost Tri-Cities funding. So I misspoke there. I'm sorry. It has not been restored. The Benton Franklin Health District operates with an annual budget of around 17 million. Losing 500,000 significantly affects planned public health initiatives. So, what is actually lost in this? You're probably wondering is okay. It sounds like it was COVID money. COVID's not a thing anymore. Where is this money going to? What's it for? A great question. Love to tell you. First and foremost, is possible delays in the investigations of infectious diseases like TB, measles, and COVID due to fewer resources. So and it's kinda like so there's some investigative money there for these, you know, th these those specific diseases. Ending distribution of free COVID test kits, so this would include those provided via vending machine outside the Kennewick office. So that's the one outside of the courthouse, in Kennewick on, I wanna say Okanagan. So that one's kind of a hit right there is that free resource for COVID tests is gonna be gone. Childcare facilities, so they would stop proactive outreach to private childcare centers to mitigate respiratory illness, and then ceasing the distribution of purifier filters for childcare environments. So, of course, childcare environments would have to, of course, then buy their own air purifier filters, and there wouldn't be any proactive outreach to mitigate illness. So, I believe that would be like, hey, this outbreak's happening. This is what to look for, kind of thing. That communication. I don't think it would hard stop, but it would probably be a little bit more limited and not as frequent. In the juvie and community housing centers, it would halt most infection prevention training and resources aimed at juvenile detention centers and community housing, reducing outreach to the unhoused or the homeless, including distribution of essential wound care kits aimed at infection prevention for household individuals, for homeless individuals. And then, of course, for the coroner and laboratory services, it would eliminate courier service partnership that previously sent post-mortem samples for COVID-19 testing and data collection. I don't think Let me actually tell you a story here. So when I worked at Hapo during COVID, actually, there is um a person that works the deceased account, and that was me for a little bit. And during this time, I would review death certificates. And a lot of death certificates were saying COVID, 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 COVID. COVID was on there for some cause of death, which was spiking the numbers when the real cause of death was person was shot or the person was died in their sleep or heart attack or stroke or something. But COVID was always on there, and so I don't see that part as a bad thing. That this has to go through something. Of course, there's some positions that didn't get filled because there's no money for them. Current staff may face layoffs, which is unless they're reassigned to other open positions within the district. So, consolidation of staff, making sure the right people are there and whatnot. Let's see. So over the next 90 days, they're going to continue to assess the ongoing financial impacts. Further cuts may still incur, but we'll see kind of what that looks like exactly. Next story here is animal neglect probe in Benton City. So 13 dogs were seized in Benton City on April 5th. So this last weekend at a home on the 34,000 block of Firewood Drive in Benton City. 13 husky type dogs were seized from a residential property. So how did this even begin? Like who snitched? Basically, you're not a snitch if you're protecting the dogs. I'm protecting animals. A concerned neighbor alerted Benton County Sheriff's deputies about potential mistreatment of dogs at the Benton City property. After several weeks of investigation, authorities obtained and served a search warrant to the home. Deputies executed this warrant at approximately 11 a.m. on Saturday. Most dogs were found inside a double-wide manufactured home. Others ran loose and were difficult to catch. Authorities indicated the dogs did not seem severely malnourished, but show signs of neglect or poor care. The dogs are now at the Benton County Animal Control Shelter in Kennewick. All dogs will undergo a veterinary exam to assess their health and any treatment required. There's been no arrests for this, no charges filed. They're still investigating the animal abuse and possible violations of breeding laws. It continues. The reason for that is that there's no arrest yet in the ongoing investigations because they need vet exams, right? They need to be told by the vet, hey, this is what's going on. This dog has this dog has this, maybe laceration here, things like that. Kind of see exactly what went on. So the veterinary assessments are a key part here. So hopefully there'll be updates on this story. I'll be trying to follow it. It's just very interesting. Let's see. I'm going to skip that one for now. I'm going to come back to it. But Finley School District is facing major cuts if a levy doesn't pass. So the Finley School District near Tri-Cities, so Finley's a neighbor of the Tri-Cities, faces drastic cuts to programs, sports programs, a shift to 4-day school week, and significant staffing reductions if voters do not approve a critical levy on April 22nd. So 4-day school week doesn't sound bad. Immediate impact if the levy fails. Elimination of all school sports programs. So that's a big blow for Finley, not being able to have their own sport. That's going to be rough. 4-day school week, which, okay. Cutting up to 27 jobs, including 8 teachers, 2 admin, 2 district office workers, 15 classified support staff, custodians, paraeducators, etc. Impact if the levy passes, district still faces $1 million shortfall, which really isn't that bad. Plan cuts to, and this is one of those rural areas though, so like that $1 million is like a lot, and really important. Plans to cut middle school sports, transportation, uniform summer camps, and C-team sports. Clubs including drama, band, fellowship of Christian athletes, student against drunk driving, and leadership programs, would still be cut. And supplemental curriculum materials and classroom subscriptions would also be cut. Reduction of administrative salaries would also be cut. Reduction of 5 teacher and 10 support staff positions. So even if the levy passes, there's still going to be cuts, but not as drastic. And they'll still have a full school week. But a 4-day school week doesn't actually sound that bad. It would be a cool place for innovation to kind of look at, how can we maximize these 4 days to benefit these students? It would be really rough for childcare for that extra day, especially since they're cutting those programs. But I believe those are private and done on their own through like Boys and Girls Club or YMCA. So those are something totally different that would be out there. So the levy amount is 2 years, $3.45 million. Replacement levy funds teacher salaries, school safety, special education, art, student programs, athletes, and building maintenance. So the tax rate is 1.89 per $1,000 property value. So it's a property tax, of course. People don't want their property taxes to go up, especially out there in Finley when things are kind of rural and a lot of people own big properties. Agriculture is a big part of Finley, and they don't want to pay more property taxes, even for schools. And 9 per $1,000 property value in 2027 as a tax. That's a lot of money. For a home of $400,000 home, just to put this in real numbers, about $750 for the first year, $800 in the second year extra in property taxes. So that's a tough pill to swallow when you put like numbers behind it. It's like, whoa, that's a lot of money. I'm not sure if I want all that or not. And can we reallocate and look at funds and maybe make some cuts here or there and make some cuts at the city to help out the school district kind of thing. So I mean there's always ways to make these things happen. Hopefully, people argue that it's essential to keep things a war of possible closure, of dramatic scaling down of school operations without it. Opponents to this emphasize that residents are already burdened by high taxes because they are. They urge the school district to manage their budget more wisely instead of increasing taxes. That's true. They feel the threats of program cuts are a common tiresome tactic, and they 100% are. They 100% are. Like the opposition here is 100% right. Like these are the scare tactics that they like to use, right? Like, hey, this is gonna happen if you don't do this, or this is gonna happen if you do this. This is gonna happen if you do this, or not happen if you do this. So, anyways, if you're in Finley and ballots must be returned by 8 p.m. on election day, April 22nd, 2025. Voter registration or updates are online until April 14th, 2025. So go ahead and go and look that out. We've all heard a lot of talk on tariffs, so I'll cover this story and then I'll get into the one I really want to cover as we jump into the different controversies of the week. Tariffs and the Tri-Cities. What a lovely title. So President Trump's new tariffs, part of a broader Liberation Day push to boost the U.S. manufacturing, could mean an added $9,200 per new home in construction costs across the U.S. So for Tri-Cities, where housing is already tight and expensive, the ripple effects could deepen the affordability crisis. So material cost surge is going to go up. Lumber alone could go up 60%, and local estimate it could also go up to about $9,200 per new build. But that's not necessarily true because as we're continuing to learn, like there's ongoing tariff negotiations with Canada, U.S., Mexico, EU, and all over the world. Tariffs are getting people to the table and negotiating, and which is a fantastic thing. So we're seeing that these things could happen, but the likelihood that they actually do happen, I believe, is we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see. I don't want to say they're not going to happen because I don't know. I can't see the future, but the likelihood that they're less likely than we think they are, I think, is pretty good. So the housing shortage demand still outpaces supply. Average home prices hit 480,000. So math is hard. In January 2025, up 7% year over year, more than double the national inflation rate. Apartments too, vacancy rates are up 8.3 due to 1,100 new units in 2024, but rents are still rising now, averaging $1,400 a month for mid-level units. Land demand, 7,000 plus new homes are planned for in the region over the next 5 years. A third, 2,200 plus, will be townhomes, a more affordable, space-efficient option. We do have a lot of townhomes under development, and I think it's really cool. I think that'll really help the housing demand and help a lot of people get into a home that they can call their own. Townhomes equal hope, smaller footprint, less land, more cost effective, supported by 2023 Washington legislation to allow denser housing. So I think it's really cool. They're not stacked housing, so you have neighbors on your side, but you don't have neighbors on top of you, which is a huge bonus. So I love townhomes. I think they're beautiful. I think they're great. I think they're a good community. I think they create good communities as well. Interest rates, some relief could come. Mortgage rates 6.75 in early April are expected to dip in if the Fed continues to cut rate. Every job helps buyers qualify for more, says Jeff Lucy of the local HBA. I know the goal nationally is to get to a 5.875 or 5.875 interest rate because that helps people digest it as like, okay, I'm at 5%, which helps people feel more comfortable to buy. We're getting a lot closer. We're about full percentage point off, so the goal is almost there. It's really cool. So, voices from the field. Jeff Lucy of the Home Builders Association of Tri-City said, "Jobs are the number one thing that will slow a housing market. We're not keeping up with demand." And Damian Padilla of ProMade Home, "We're not expecting price increases immediately, but we're watching closely." So, bottom line, if you're building, buying, or renting in the Tri-Cities, watch this space. The new tariffs could raise construction costs, slow new home development, and keep prices rising, especially if domestic supply chains can't keep pace. But with the new townhomes on the rise, the future of Tri-Cities housing might look a little more vertical, a little more compact, but hopefully a little bit more affordable, which is really cool because these absolutely will help. We're actually on pace with all these new developments that are coming. We're actually going to have a housing surplus in the Tri-Cities here very soon. It's going to be really, really awesome to see what that does for our local economy. So I'm really excited for that. Final top story of the week that I want to get into is Eastern Washington athletes file complaint over transgender competitor. And Mark Cuban had some recent comments on this. I don't think it's his place at all. He doesn't have any, kids that are still going through this and whatnot. He's like, "Oh, we're just not ready. We're just not ready." It's like, come on. No, I don't think anyone's ever going to be ready for their daughter to go up against a biological male in a female sport. So, two female high school athletes from Eastern Washington have filed a federal civil rights complaint asking the Trump administration to block a transgender girl from participating in girls' track and field events. So, a boy, essentially. So, the athletes filing the complaint are Cora Legerich, a Gonzaga Preparatory School Spokane, and Soliel Hoffer, which is from Prosser High School in Prosser, so much more local to the Tri-Cities. So shout out to these two young ladies. Athletes targeted by the complaint: Veronica Garcia, East Valley High School Spokane, a transgender senior who previously won the state 400-meter championship. I think this is the one that's like on the videos where he just smokes the other people, absolutely smokes them. The ADF, a conservative religious law firm known for involvement in landmark Supreme Court cases, including overturning Roe v. Wade, is the legal representation on this. So very interesting that they got the ADF on this. So they filed with the U.S. Department of Education. They claimed the Title IX violations, and they claimed their most recent executive order keeping men out of women's sports issued in February 2025. So the background of this is that Washington, the WIAA has no backbone, first and foremost. So Garcia won first place in the WIAA 2A state track championship in the 400 meter. Langridge competed against Garcia in the preseason event on March 17th, finishing fourth. Hoffer placed 13th last year in state championship and may compete against Garcia again. Garcia, his response, they're appalled by the complaint. They advocate for kindness, respect, noting that transgender athletes represent a very small minority. Okay, then go and compete in boys sport. You are not a girl. You are not a biological girl. You do not belong in that locker room. You do not belong in girls' sports. You belong over in the boys' sports. And if you get crushed, you get crushed. So what? Go and compete there. It's not fair that you have a biological advantage over these girls. It's not fair. Miss Hofer, recognized as Prosser High School's Female Track Athlete of the Year for 2 consecutive years. And she is signed to play soccer at Walla Walla Community College, which is really cool. So there's definitely a great athlete she is. The WIAA stance is that they have no backbone. They defend its 19 years policy, allowing students to compete according to their gender identity, consistent with state law, but state law gets trumped by federal law. But, the WIAA refuses to recognize that in its entirety. The legal context, of course, is the executive order. A federal judge previously halted President Biden's attempt to expand Title IX, those Title IX protections. However, Washington state law will explicitly protect transgender rights because, who cares about federal law of trumping state law, because that's what it does. Federal law does trump state law, and that's just how it is. So it remains a larger discussion to be seen, but now this makes a second story in a week between these 3 school districts, Kennewick included, and now these girls, the actual athletes, filing their own complaints against these school districts. So enough about all that. Let's jump down to, okay, so there's more concerns. So you guys remember that story of the Washington State trooper that caused the fatal crash? Sarah Clausen, 13-year veteran of the Washington State Patrol, formerly a public information officer. Yoser Sanchez, 20-year-old motorcyclist, killed in the crash. This happened on Highway 240 near Village Parkway in Richland, evening of March 1st, 2025. So this is an ongoing story since then. Trooper Clausen is suspected of the vehicular homicide in the crash. She had a blood alcohol level reportedly of 0.17 nearly 6 hours later. The case is pending formal charges reviewed by Spokane County for impartiality, so they got to go outside of the local county jurisdiction for this one. So she was twice the legal limit nearly 6 hours after the crash, so still 6 hours. So more details came out about this. She was driving home with pizza after allegedly spending nearly 4 hours at the Moon Palace bar. She turned in front of Sanchez, striking his motorcycle. Witnesses say she appeared panicked, possibly tried to leave the scene, then eventually helped after bystanders approached. She refused field sobriety and breath tests. She denied drinking, but also refused to answer questions directly. She arrested and booked into Benton County Jail under suspicion of the vehicular homicide. She was not yet formally charged. So the bar evidence is Clausen and her husband were regulars at Moon Palace, a cash-only business. Investigators suspect bar staff may have destroyed their tab or records of alcohol served. Surveillance shows the couple entered the bar around 3:20 p.m. and left around close to 7:30 p.m. So 4 hours at the bar previous to this. Twice the legal limit blood alcohol level. So she was drunk driving. A Washington State trooper, a Washington State Patrol, drunk driving, killed a young man. Defense says the case has been overpublicized and emphasizes Clausen's long service. Who cares? I don't care about her service. I care that she had a blood alcohol level twice the legal limit. She was refusing to comply. She was refusing to take the test. She drove drunk. When she is a Washington State trooper, she pulls people over for being drunk. Like, how twisted. That's so twisted. It's not okay. So what's next? We'll see what happens next. We'll see. Let's just continue to wait and see. Let's see. Okay, this is a good one. So this is a good one that will jump into our local area a little bit. Probably not too much, but Washington lawmakers propose a social media tax to fund youth mental health. So this is sponsored by Representative Lisa Callan, Democrat from Issaquah. It imposes an additional 0.4 B&O tax on gross income of social media companies operating in Washington State. Funds go to a new youth behavioral health account. This would go into effect January 1st, 2026. Nonprofits exempt from federal income tax. So defined as any app, website, or service that allows users to register an account, enable social interactions, content sharing like photos, videos, text, links, audio. So examples would be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, Twitter, X, all the above. The funds would support a chief officer of youth behavioral health in the governor's office, so a new, probably highly paid position, a telehealth behavioral health pilot program, which would be interesting, and then other state-approved youth mental health initiatives. So interesting. Very interesting here. Washington ranks 48th in the U.S. for youth mental health. So teens using social media 3+ hours a day are 2 times more likely to experience anxiety and depression. 46% of teen girls say social media hurts their body image. We already know these things. If this bill is passed, it would save life. We are in a mental health crisis. So that's from Chitan Sone, another representative in Olympia. She's kind of kooky, honestly, if I'm thinking of the right person. So if I'm not thinking of the right person, please forgive me, but I'm pretty sure Sony is a little bit out there, for lack of a better word. So opposition arguments here. It violates the Internet Tax Freedom Act, which it does. It would raise ad costs for small local businesses, which it would. It would be harder to advertise on these platforms. Urges the state to fund youth programs from the general fund instead, which there's plenty of money. We don't have a revenue problem. Stop trying to find more revenue to take out of Washingtonians' pockets and businesses' pockets and just reallocate the budget and cut the waste. A concern over targeting one sector in the economy. So I don't know why Washington loves to go after big tech, but it's definitely not okay. It doesn't make any sense. So I don't understand it. It says House Bill 2038. You can go and sign in opposition or support of this wherever you think it's going to be. Going over to ledge.wa.gov, type in 2038 into the search bar and it'll pop up for you. I also will be covering it on episode 11 of the Evergreen Report as well, in a little bit more detail. Let's see, a couple more stories here that we're just going to get into that are, local stories that I really want to jump into. Oh, speaking of schools, there's so much school news. It's crazy. Richland School District budget cuts. What's changing in 2025, 2026? So next school year. So the Richland School District is eliminating 6 nurse position, all middle and high school librarian roles. Executive Director of Operations Richard Krasner after 8 years. These staff changes come as part of an ongoing effort to reduce spending and balance the district's budget. The district overspent by 6.5 million in 2022, 2023, and then 1.5 in 2023, 2024. Property value increases cause a 10 million drop in state levy match revenue. District reserves are projected to fall below 500,000 by July 2025. The goal is to rebuild reserves to 12 million, 5% of budget by the 2027-2028 school year. So the staff changes, staff reduced from 16 nurses to closer to a pre-pandemic 10 in 2018, 2019. Health and paraprofessionals will remain in school. Certified nurses will rotate and provide oversight for specialized care. Future staff increases are possible if needs grow, according to the district. Library reassignment. This one's really interesting here. Really interesting. Middle and high school librarians will be moved into classroom roles. We don't know. There's possibly paras. We'll see. One district level librarian will oversee all secondary school libraries. Elementary school libraries will not be impacted. Secondary libraries will be open from 6:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Staffed by trained paraprofessionals, offer Chromebook and tech support via the IT department. So the focus here, Superintendent Shelley Redinger emphasized the goal of student-centered services and being thoughtful stewards of public funds. But the district admits these decisions were not made lightly. What's next? More cuts may still be coming under phase 2 of the budget plan. February projections include 3.8 million in possible reductions. So this is just a lot of really good things. So cutting nurses and librarians, cutting nurses to a pre-pandemic level. Obviously, they were fine then; they'll be fine now. Librarians, I think, is okay. That they're staffed by paras. It's just kind of oversight, watching them because you do things on the Chromebook, IT, tech services. So I think it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. It sounds really bad on the surface, but it's gonna be okay. It's really going to be okay. I don't see this as a bad thing. I think Richland is doing a good job of finding, okay, what can we cut with thought and make it okay. This other story that I want to cover here, Columbia Center Mall revamps with modern looks. So Fountain of Youth removed to make space for events, vendors, and modern design. New retail additions include Boot Barn, Lululemon, and Garage. Reflects nationwide mall trends and hopes for revitalization. So hoping to revitalize the mall culture is something that America wants to do, the nation wants to do. Just struggling because these retailers just can't stay in business. It seems like that every other week someone's closing. It feels like. Also, there's a mini bike crash in Kennewick highlights off-road safety concerns. So 19-year-old was injured after fleeing the police. Kennewick PD reminds public mini bikes aren't street legal and pose serious risk. So there've been a lot of mini bikes. I've seen a lot of mini bikes. Parents, teenagers on these mini bikes. Make sure they have a freaking helmet on. A helmet, and they know what they're doing. They're not riding in the road. They're not riding in the middle of the road. They're staying on the sidewalk. They're staying off the beaten path, and they're not on the road, interfering with traffic and acting a fool because that's dangerous. They're gonna get hurt. I've seen way too many come way too close to getting into accidents. And I don't want to see any of these kids hurt because they will get hurt on a mini bike because they don't have protective gear. They're often not wearing the right helmet. They're not wearing the right gear to protect their skin, their bodies, things like that. And they're doing it thinking that they're funny and hilarious, and they're not. So anyways, those are the other 2 stories that I wanted to cover here on the Evergreen Local. Last one here today is Washington Reentry Centers at risk amid budget crisis. Tri-Cities rallies to save them. So there was a couple rallies over the last week. This was one of them. And then also we had the Hands Off, which protest, which brought 1,000 plus people. I didn't get an invite. I don't know why no one invites me to these things ever. Like I want to go. I want to go and I want to talk to the people there. I want to say, hey, why are you here? What are you protesting? Why are you protesting? I want to know. So please, people, invite me. Please, I want to go. I want to be invited. I want to be part of you so bad. I want to go protest Elon and Big Orange Man while we ignore all the taxation, the taxapalooza. Let's ignore all that, but let's go and fight Big Orange Go and fight Elon, go and fight the Teslas. I was in Leavenworth, and there was a hands-off protest there. I was celebrating my anniversary with my beautiful wife, and we saw one of these protests just while we're eating bratwurst, and upside down American flag, which are signs of distress, things like that. And I just so badly wanted to go and talk to these people, but she wouldn't let me. But I can report that no Teslas were harmed during this protest. Plenty drove by, plenty were parked there in Leavenworth. No Teslas were harmed during this protest, so it's really cool. And then there was another lady passing out flyers on the street that I overheard, and I really wanted to go sit on the bench. I was like, "No, come on, don't do that. Come on, you're no fun." But anyways, it was an interesting sight. So please invite me, people. I want to be a part of you. I want to know what is so distressing, what your emergency is that you have to put an American flag upside down and disrespect the flag like that. Because you clearly don't understand flag code. But anyways, back to this. So the Tri-Cities Reentry Center in Kennewick, a key transitional program for formerly incarcerated inmates, is on the chopping block as part of the Washington State Senate's proposal to cut $2.3 million from the budget to address the $16 billion shortfall. Also on the closure list is Yakima and Spokane's Reentry Center. So 3 reentry centers, Kennewick or Tri-Cities, Yakima, Spokane. Roughly 50 supporters gathered outside the Tri-City facility on April 6th to protest the closure plan. This is a good protest to join. This would have been the one. If you were looking for a protest to join over last weekend, this should have been the one you were at. Former inmate Paul Anderson, now a manager and mentor, spoke out. "This place saved my life. Without it, I would have gone back to prison." Supporters say closing the facility undermined public safety, which it does. I mean, Democrats don't care about public safety. They just care about, more taxes and looking to do these things. Whatever. Reduces community reintegration success, 100% true. Forces inmates to return home with only cash and a bus ticket, which, how is that successful when they're trying to reintegrate into society? How does that help them? So what does a reentry center offer? What the heck goes on here if you don't know? Up to 1 year of transitional housing, which is fantastic. Mental health and addiction support, which is 100% needed to stay clean and get mental health right after coming out of prison. Employment help, job placement, 100% needed. There's only so many places that these men and women coming out of prison can go to and get help. That's fantastic. Educational guidance. Maybe they need their GED, high school diploma. Maybe they went from juvie to adult prison, and they never had the opportunity to do that while they were in prison. So educational guidance, 100%. Maybe they want to go back to school. Maybe they want to better their lives. Maybe they want to get a degree. Maybe they have goals. They're people. They have goals, right? They're allowed to do that. Connections to local services, 100% needed. The Tri-City Center has been operating for 26 years with space for 34 men, 6 women at any given time. So why close now? Well, low occupancy rates across state facilities, fewer qualifying inmates after Washington Supreme Court overturned some drug laws, and budget writers are targeting underutilized facilities. But the staff argue there's a backlog of eligible individuals and not enough access when there 100% is. There's more barriers to re-entry than there are open gates. That's a good way to say that. Winnie Chan, Reentry Center manager, speaking as a private citizen, "Our former residents say you saved my life." Ani Sonier, Yakima staff member, speaking personally, "This is not the solution. Reentry is cheaper and more effective than prison," which is 100% is. "Without these centers, releases will be sent back in society with no support, raising risk of relapse, homelessness, and recidivism." So basically relapse as well. Another different word, having a hard time reacclimating to society. James Dudley, a current resident nearing release, "Without this program, people will struggle who didn't have to." The bigger picture here, State Corrections Secretary Tim Langs agrees. Reentry graduates are less likely to reoffend. This is public safety. With the $16 billion to cover, the legislature faces tough choices. Final budget decisions are expected before the end of April, and they're coming down the pipeline. As you may are keeping track if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are well aware. It's a lot of back and forth. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing this kind of thing. It's a lot of back and forth in a lot of different ways. So just be mindful, be aware of all the things going on around you. And I really think that's it for the news. So reminder, if you're in Finley, go and vote on the levy. Ballots are due by 8 p.m. April 22nd. If you have a local story or a tip, send it in and I would love to feature it. Don't forget to join your local school board, city council meetings to stay informed. There's plenty going on at any given time. And again, thanks for tuning in to the Evergreen Local Tri-Cities Edition. We've got a lot happening and your voice matters. So stay connected, stay informed, and until next time, stay evergreen. And this is just a PS reminder here. Go ahead and go follow us on Instagram and X at EVERGREENRPT to stay up to date on all things Evergreen Report, local, and the big show as well. But until next time, stay evergreen.